Hello, children. Today, let us start third chapter, that is laws of motion. Laws of motion. So, in this chapter, as the name suggests, we are going to learn about the various laws of motions. Actually, it is a Newton's laws of motion. Newton has given actually three laws of motion. Three laws of motion is given by the Newtons. That is Newton's first law of motion, Newton's second law of motion, and Newton's third law of motion. So we will study in deep about these three laws of motion: contact and non-contact forces, CGS and SI units of forces, Newton's first law of motion, concept of inertia, mass, force, second law of motion. So the weight and mass, the basic difference between the weight and mass, Newton's third law of motion, and gravitation. These are the topics that we are going to study today. Okay, so let us move towards our first topic, that is given here as contact and non-contact forces. As you can see from the screen, contact and non-contact forces. So what are contact forces? As the name suggests, that is the dictionary meaning of contact and non-contact, you are knowing very well that contact means something which is in contact, non-contact means something which is not in contact. So what does this mean technically? What does this mean? Contact forces and non-contact forces. Contact forces are those forces which is applied by physically contacting with that object. When a physical contact is established, suppose we are pushing any object that is kept on the ground, pushing a table, pushing a chair. So in these cases which we have discussed just now, in these cases we are applying a contact forces. That means a force is a physical cause that changes or tends to change the state, size or shape of the body. So first of all, this definition is given: force. So what is force actually? It is a physical cause that when you will apply the force, it can deform the objects, it can change the state of the object, it can change the size of the object. Force as a cause to change the state of a body. When you apply a force, if a body is in motion, it may come to rest. You can stop the body. If a body is at rest, you can make it in motion. Okay, when a force acts on a body in the state of rest or a state of motion, then body comes or tends to come in the state of motion or state of rest. For example, when we kick a ball lying on the ground, it moves and comes to state of motion from state of rest. So very simple: when you will kick a ball, it moves forward. That is, initially it was at rest and now it is in a state of motion. When brakes are applied by the driver of a bus, it comes in the state of rest from the state of motion. So initially the bus was in motion. When the brakes are applied, a retarding force used to act on it and the bus comes to stop. Force as a cause to change the shape or size of the body. When a force is applied on a non-rigid body, on a rigid body there will not be any effect. Rigid body means if you are applying a force on a wall, nothing will happen to the wall. Non-rigid body means like a rubber ball. If you are squeezing a rubber ball, if you are just releasing the applied force, you are just removing the applied force, then due to its restoration tendency, due to its restoring force, it will try to come to its original size. It will again become a ball, as you have seen previously. Okay, so when a force is applied on a non-rigid body, like a rubber ball, like a spring or a rubber band, then it can be stretched and shape of size of a body changed, and the cause for the change is force, and that cause is also a force, Okay, so basically we are going to study about contact forces and non-contact forces. Contact forces and non-contact forces. Contact forces and non-contact forces. So first and foremost, we will see the contact forces. As I have told you, the forces which make a physical contact during the application are known as contact forces. That is, some guided medium is there. That is, some guided medium is there. Physical transmission media is there. Suppose we are connecting through a wire two things, and the particular data is allowed to flow through that wire from one point to the other wire, then it will be called as guided connection or a guided medium. Unguided medium means like you are talking to a on a phone, you are just dialing up the FM like 98.3 98.4 FM. So these radio stations, particular frequency bands are being caught by the device. So these are due to the radio waves that are split into the environment. This radio waves, the frequencies are traveling on that radio waves, and that particular frequency is catched by the device, and the device used to run on that particular frequency. So in that way, the call is being connected, the FM is being played. So these are non-contact forces. These are non-contact forces. Contact forces, the forces in which a physical contact is made. And non-contact forces, the forces in which physical contact is not made. That is unguided medium. Unguided medium. Like suppose a current is flowing through a wire. If you will high current, high intensity current is flowing through a wire, and if you are placing your hand near the wire, not exactly on the wire, near the wire, then you will feel some jerk on your hand. That jerk is due to a non-contact force, that is electric field. Electric field is generated. Due to that one, there is an electrical force. Due to that one, there is an electrical force. Electrical force. So these are not magnet. If you are keeping some iron pieces or any ferromagnetic substance around the magnet, then that magnet used to attract it without any physical connection, without any contact, due to its magnetic field that is having influence in some area. Magnetic field or electric field, it is having a particular influence in a particular area. So up to that, if you are keeping any object, it will feel its influence. It will feel its influence. Like magnet you are keeping, and under that magnetic field influence you are keeping some iron piece, then that iron piece is getting attracted towards the magnet. So these are the examples of non-contact forces. These are the examples of non-contact forces. So basically contact forces, non-contact forces. Now force exerted during collisions. Force exerted during collisions. Force exerted in stretching of a wire or a spring. Frictional force, normal force, viscous force, air resistance. So these are the contact forces, because there is a physical contact. There is a physical contact between the two things. Now just you see force in collisions one by one. When two bodies A and B collide, then the two forces act. Here FAB and FBA, you don't get confused. FAB means force that is applied by B on A. The letter which is written first on that one, on that object, the force is exerted, and that letter which is written afterwards, that is exerting the force. So FAB, subscript, in the subscript AB is written, that means A is experiencing force due to B. If it is written opposite, that is FBA, that means B is experiencing force due to A. So this is very simple, you should understand this one. Force in collision, when two bodies A and B collides, then two forces act on FAB, the system of two bodies, that is FAB and FBA, equal and opposite. FAB force on A, force on A by B. FBA force on B by A. So these things you should know. The letter which is written first, that is experiencing a force due to the second. So first letter denotes the first object and the second letter denotes the second object. Okay. So first one is experiencing a force by the second one. In the second case, if we are writing FBA, then B is being exerted by a force with the first one, that is A. So these are the basic concepts of FAB and FBA, force in collisions. So if the two objects are colliding with each other, then the force will be exerted on both the object. A will exert force on B and B will exert force on A, and whichever will be more, on that side only the object will move. Resultant, the resultant will act on the greater side force. Force exerted by a spring. When a spring is stressed or compressed by the external force, an internal force also acts opposite to the external force and equal in magnitude, called as restoring force. In the adjacent diagram, a spring is stressed by a weight W downwards, restoring force F acts upwards. Both weight and restoring force are equal and opposite. So here, just now I have told you there is some restoration phenomena. We are applying force, that is a force. We are giving the name as force. We are applying the force. We are giving the name as force. Okay, we are applying the force, we are giving the name as force. Now the internal tendency that is developed inside that object, that is restoring force. So that internal means it will have some tendency to come back to its original position, to come back to its original position. So when the deforming force means the force which you are applying, that you are removing, then its restoring force will come into action and it will bring that object into its original position. So this is the same case in the spring. Spring, either it is compressed or it is decompressed, or it is stressed. Either it is compressed or it is stressed. If you are compressing the spring and then you are releasing the force, then it will come to its original position. If you are stretching the spring and then you are releasing the force, then again it will try to come to its original position. So here it is shown they are equal and opposite. That is, the deforming force and the restoring force are equal and opposite. So here deforming force which is changing the shape of the object, that is W is acting downside. In this diagram you can just see W is acting downside. This W is acting downside. Okay, W is acting here downside. You can see here W is acting downside, and due to this W acting downside, a restoring force is acting upside. A restoring force is acting upside. So due to this restoring force, an object tries to come to its original position. Okay, next one is frictional force. It is very simple and very important also, which we come across in our daily life also. Frictional force, everywhere there is a frictional force, everywhere. If there should not be friction, then we should not be able to walk, we should not be able to ride a bicycle or any vehicle. There is a frictional force between the tire and the road, tire of a vehicle and the road, then only the vehicle is able to move on the road. There is a frictional force between our feet and the ground, then only we are able to move on the ground or walk on the ground. So frictional force, when one body slides over a rough body or a surface, then due to the deformation or of prominence and hollows, a force starts to act at the interface opposite to the motion, called frictional force. So what is actually frictional force? So that frictional force is caused due to the interlocking. The molecules, infinite number of particles are there, elementary particles are there, they are getting interlocked. Suppose one particle is kept on a table and that particle we are sliding on the table, then the particles of the table and the particles of that object which we have kept on that table, the molecules of that particles, they will get interlocked, and due to that interlocking they will try to resist. That's why we have to apply some force. We have to apply some force to overcome that interlocking, force. So when we are applying the force, that due to that interlocking force, it will overcome the interlocking force and the object will move. So we have to apply a little bit much more force than that one. That is known as the limiting force. Limiting force is the force at which the body just begins to slide, start sliding. So to overcome the frictional force. So here one diagram is given. If we are pushing the object, then frictional force is acting opposite to the direction in which the motion of the particles is taking place, in which the motion of the object is taking place. Suppose the particle is moving in front, then the frictional force will act opposite to that one. So frictional force, we call it as, it is a necessary evil. Why we call it as a necessary evil? It is necessary also, and it is evil also. It is dangerous also. If frictional force is much more, then means lot of pits and lots of disturbance we are getting on the road, then our vehicle will not be able to move properly. If our cycle or if our bike is not properly greased or it is not properly serviced, it will create lot of problem because there is a friction between the ball bearings and that axle. There is a friction. So if we are increasing lot of friction, then also it is a dangerous, and if there is no friction, then also it is a dangerous. So that's why its name came. Friction is a necessary evil. If you are suppose pouring some oil on the floor and you are walking on that one, then friction will be very, very less, and you may just slip down and you may fall down. So it is a necessary evil, frictional force. Next one is normal force. When a body is placed on a surface, then a force acts on its by the surface opposite to its weight is called the normal or the reactional force. So normal or the reactional force. So whenever we are applying force in one direction, then there will be a opposite force in the in the opposite direction. That is known as the normal force. Viscous force. It is generally comes when we are talking about the liquid. The force existing between the two layers of a liquid, that is known as the viscosity, viscous force. The drag, when the liquid layers are trying to drag one over the other, then there is a force that is known as the viscous force. It is an opposing force acting between different layers of a liquid. So in the adjoining figure, as we move deeper and deeper in the moving layers of a liquid, velocity of the layers decreases due to opposing force called viscous force. So viscous force goes on decreasing. Air resistance, generally it is neglected, but it is taken into account, then its direction is opposite to the motion of the body. Non-contact forces, the force experienced by the body without any physical contact are called the non-contact forces. I have told you the example just now: gravitational force, electrical force, magnetic force. If you are just dropping any object from some particular point, then it is directly coming downside. It is directly coming downside without any physical contact. That is known as the gravitational force. That is, due to its gravity, the body is attracted towards the earth. It will not go up or it will not go anywhere else. Electrical force, I have told you that it creates an electric field all around it. Due to that electric field, an electrical force is generated all around it. Magnetic force, that also we have discussed. The magnets, if you will keep an iron piece near the magnet, it will get attracted without any physical contact. Why? Because it also creates, like electric field, it also creates a magnetic field all around it. Okay, so gravitational force, electrical force, magnetic force. Let us just go through whatever is given in your book. Gravitational force, it is an attractive force acting between two different bodies of the universe due to their masses, and motion of a body is towards the heavier mass provided required forces acts like a body falls on the earth due to gravitational force of the earth towards the center of the earth due to heavier mass of the earth. Gravitational force is a long range, weak and only attractive in nature. So for example, cricket ball thrown in air comes to the earth due to gravitational force. Water flows from higher altitude to a lower altitude due to the gravitational force. Leaves from the trees fall due to the effect of gravitational force. So these are very simple. Electrical force, when 2 point charges are placed at some small distance apart, they repel. Say here, electrical forces. There is one equation which is not given in your book, but just you should know. Electrical force, that is known as the Coulomb's law of attraction or repulsion. Coulomb has derived one equation. If two charges are kept separately, that is Q1 and Q2, and they are separated by a distance r, then the force of attraction or repulsion between these two charges is directly proportional to the product of those two charges, that is Q1 and Q2. F is directly proportional to Q1 and Q2 and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. It means electrical force will decrease if you will increase the distance between the two charges that are kept. Distance between the two charges that are kept. First point. Second one, if you will bring those charges closer to each other, then the electrical force or the electric field intensity will increase. So F equals to, or we can say F is directly proportional to Q1 Q2 upon R square. Q1 Q2 upon R square. So proportionality sign we will remove it by just keeping one constant. So we will get one equation, that is F equals to K Q1 Q2 upon R. F equals to K Q1 Q2 upon R. Like this equation we will get F equals to K Q1 Q2 upon R square. So here in this equation you see F equals to K Q1 Q2 upon R square, you see, that is force of attraction or repulsion. Now you see, when there will be a repulsion and when there will be attraction. Repulsion will take place when the charges are of similar types, either positive positive or negative negative. Then there will be a repulsion. When the attraction will take place when the charges are of opposite polarity. That is, one charge is negative and another charge is positive. So F equals to K Q1 Q2 upon R square. So these are the factors on which this electrical force depends. Okay. So F equals to K Q1 Q2 upon R square. So what is the value of K? K is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 and all those things, 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton meter square per coulomb square. So these things you will study in class 12. Just you should be familiar that this is the formula to calculate the electrical force. Okay. Next one is magnetic force. Magnetic force. Here, if two masses, magnetic force, see here this equation, if same way as you have seen the electrical force, if two masses are kept at a finite distance apart, two masses, and they are always attractive, they are not repulsive, two masses m1 and m2, then the force between these two masses is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Same way. And here G is a proportionality constant, that is known as the universal gravitational constant. Its value is 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11. So you don't have to bother about this constant and other things. You should just know that these are the formula by which we can calculate what are the magnetic force and what are the electrical force that an object will experience when it is kept under the influence of an electrical force or a magnetic force. So F equals to G m1 m2 upon R square. Okay. Now magnetic force. When a magnet is placed in the bunch of iron nails or tail pins, then they stick with them and they are pulled from some distance due to a force called magnetic force. For example, armature of a motor, grinder of mixie and other rotating devices due to flow of electric current rotate due to the magnetic force. It is of attractive as well as repulsive, both type, like similar poles of a magnet repel each other and opposite poles attract each other. General characteristics of non-contact forces. So we have seen this. This force is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Inverse square law it will follow. These are only attractive in case of gravitational force, but both attractive and repulsive in case of electric and magnetic force. So this we have studied. Gravitational is a long range force while electrical and magnetic forces are short range forces. Gravitational force is a long range force. Gravitational is a weak force, but electrical and magnetic force are strong forces. We can run various machines and devices based on this concept. Okay, so these are the basic concept of these contact forces, non-contact forces, electrical forces, gravitational forces, magnetic forces. Now we will come on the, as we have discussed earlier, that Newton's first law of motion, Newton's second law of motion and Newton's third law of motion. So first of all we will discuss about the Newton's first law of motion and inertia. Newton's first law of motion and inertia. Basically, Newton's first law of motion is inertia itself. What does this word inertia denotes? Inertia is the term that is related to the mass. If any object is having mass, it should have inertia. That is it can be defined as the property of a body due to which it tends to remain in its initial position or rest of motion unless and until it is acted upon by any external force. The tendency of a body to remain, in its actual position, either that actual position is a rest or that actual position is a motion. So it will continue its that actual position until and unless it is acted upon by any external force. So that is inertia, and that itself is known as the Newton's first law of motion. According to the Newton's first law of motion, if a body is in a state of rest or in a state of motion, it will remain in its initial state until some unbalanced, that means external force, is applied on it. So till the time you are applying the external force, the body will remain in its state of rest or of uniform motion. Okay, it will remain in that particular position. Newton's first law of motion is also called as law of inertia. The inertia can be defined as the property of a body by virtue of which the body tends to remain in its initial position of rest or motion, and it is an inherent property of a body. It is associated with the mass of the body. Greater is the mass, more is the inertia. Greater is the mass, more is the inertia. So it is basically of two types: inertia of rest and inertia of motion. So inertia of rest means it is a property by virtue of which a body remains in its state of rest until external force is applied on it. Inertia of motion, it is the property of a body by virtue of which it will remain in its state of motion until some external force is applied on it. So it will remain in its state of motion, it will remain in its state of rest until and unless an external force is applied on it. If you will apply some external force, then conditions will change. Now some examples we will see of the inertia of rest. When a train suddenly starts to move in a forward direction, the passenger standing in the compartment tends to fall in the backward direction. Why it is happening so? Just you see this line. When a train suddenly starts to move in a forward direction, the passenger standing in the compartment tends to fall in the backward direction. The answer is hidden in this statement only. The lower part of our body, which is in contact with the floor of the train, that directly comes into motion. But upper part, due to inertia, as we have explained the inertia, that is tendency of a body to remain in its state, either it is rest or motion. So initially it was at a rest, so it will remain in its state of rest, but the lower body comes into motion. Hence the lower part of the body moves ahead and upper part is left behind. So passengers are moved in backwards. So very simple it is. When a corridor train suddenly starts, the sliding doors of some of the compartment may open. Here also the logic is that frame of the door is in contact with the train and comes in the state of motion, but sliding doors are in a state of rest and tends to remain in rest, and this is how doors open when train suddenly starts to move. So these are the same. On shaking the branches of a tree, the fruits fall down from the tree. The logic behind is that when the branch of a tree is shaken, then it comes in the state of motion, but the fruit is still in a state of rest and remains in the rest. Thus, due to its massive mass attached to the branch, weakly gets detached from the branch. So since the fruit is in a state of rest and the branch suddenly comes into a state of motion, so the fruit will detach from that branch. When a carpet is beaten with a stick, dust particles are removed from the carpet. The reason is that when carpet is beaten, it comes in the state of motion and dust particles remain in its state of rest. So automatically they will fall down and dust particles move ahead and removed from the carpet. Similarly, inertia of motion. When a cyclist stops paddling of a moving cycle, it does not come to rest immediately. Reason is that when cyclist stops to paddle, cycle is in the state of motion. So due to inertia of motion, it will continue its state of motion and comes to rest after some time due to frictional force. Clear? When a passenger comes out of a moving train, he falls down. The reason is that before jumping, whole body of the passenger is in the state of motion due to inertia of motion, but when he jumped, lower part of his body comes in the state of rest, but upper part is still in the inertia of motion. So as a result, the passenger falls down in the direction of the motion of the train. and sometimes get hurt. When a bus suddenly stops by applying brakes, the passengers are moved forward. The reason is that when a bus is in a moving state, it passes the inertia of motion, and whole body of the passenger is also in the state of motion. When the brakes are applied, lower part of the body comes in the state of rest. Due to stopping of the bus, upper part remains in the state of motion and passenger moves in the forward direction. So very clear these things are. An athlete runs before taking a long jumps. The reason is that when he or she runs, his entire body comes in the state of motion, and it is easier to take a long jump because of conversion of energy from one form to the another form. A ball thrown in upward by a passenger in the train comes in the hands in the moving train. Why it is so? The reason is that the moment ball is thrown, it was in the state of motion along with the passenger and the train. It remains in the state of motion and follows a parabolic path, and time taken by the ball along the parabolic path is same as that of taken by the train and passenger, and hence ball exactly comes into the hands of the passenger. Means if in a moving train you will throw a ball, it will come to your hand only, it will not fall somewhere else. So these are the simple examples of the Newton's first law of motion. Then comes the Newton's second law of motion. This is actually a real law. From this law only we can derive the first law and the third law. From this law only we can apply the first law and the third law. This is the basic law, Newton's second law of motion. It is a law of momentum. Here the concept of momentum comes. So here it suggests that rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the impressed force. Rate of change of momentum of a body. Momentum, all of you are knowing that momentum is the mass into velocity. Momentum is mass into velocity. कोई भी मास किस वेलोसिटी से मूव कर रहा है, that is its momentum. So mass into momentum. So mass into momentum, suppose mass will remain same only, mass we will consider same m, initial velocity is u, final velocity is v. So initial momentum will be mu and final momentum will be mv. So mv minus mu upon t, that is directly proportional to the force. So the rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the impressed force. Just you see, we can write it in this way that impressed force, suppose we are writing it as F, then we can write it is directly proportional to the rate of change of momentum. What is the meaning? First we will write change in momentum. Change in momentum, that is mv minus mu. mv minus mu. mv minus mu. That means change in momentum. Rate means divided by time. Rate of change of momentum. Rate of change of momentum. Rate of change of momentum. That is F is directly proportional to mv minus mu upon t. That means we can write this equation as F equals to m change in velocity upon time. M common हो जाएगा, m will be common. So change in velocity upon time. So change in velocity upon time is what? It is acceleration. So we will get one equation, that is F equals to ma. We can write F equals to, see here, F equals to ma. So this equation we got m as common and a stands for v minus u upon t. That is change in velocity upon time. So directly we got. So this is the Newton's second law of motion. That is rate of change of momentum of a body. Is directly proportional to the impressed force. And we have got that impressed force as mass into acceleration. This is Newton's second law of motion. This is all that is given. Here the momentum is denoted by P. Change in momentum, that is final momentum minus initial momentum, P2 minus P1, that is denoted by delta P. Okay, so v minus u, change in velocity, that we have taken it as delta v, delta p upon delta t. So that means delta v upon delta t. So just let us read once what is there. Linear momentum, it has been observed that two bodies of different masses moving with the same velocity and brought into rest in the same time, the force required for a body of more mass is more. Similarly, of equal mass travels with the same speed, need to be stopped in the same time, then the force required to stop moving with more velocity is more. Thus, force required to stop a body in the same time depends on both mass and velocity, mass as well as velocity. So force required to stop that object depends on both, that is mass as well as velocity, mass and velocity. So it is depending on two parameters, that is mass and another one is velocity. So these two mv. Okay, so that is momentum itself, that is p equals to mv, which is called momentum. Linear momentum of a body is the product of mass and its velocity. P is the momentum, m is the mass of the body, v is the velocity of the body. So momentum is a vector quantity because it denotes the direction. Its unit is very clear. Mass unit is kilogram and velocity unit is meter per second. And CGS unit we can write gram centimeter per second. Okay. So initial momentum, final momentum, change in momentum, then rate of change of momentum, that is the Newton's second law of motion. Okay, Newton's second law of motion. So here you see some graphical representation of Newton's second law of motion. It has been observed experimentally that when a body comes in the state of motion due to the applied force, then acceleration is also produced in the body and the force applied on the body is directly proportional to the acceleration. From the equation itself we are knowing F equals to ma. That is, if we are applying the force, then acceleration is also increasing in the same proportion. So we are getting the straight line. That mass is remaining constant, mass is not changing, then force is directly proportional to the acceleration. If directly proportional relation we are getting, then we will get this type of graph, that is a graph in which we are getting a line that is inclined to the x-axis, a straight line inclined to the x-axis, a straight line inclined to the x-axis. Okay, a straight line inclined to the x-axis. Clear? If a graph is plotted between acceleration and the applied force, it is a straight line. On the other hand, if force is applied on a body whose mass changes is directly proportional to the mass to produce constant acceleration. So it is directly proportional to mass also, mass and force, if acceleration is remaining constant. Okay, to produce a constant acceleration. So combining these two, F is directly proportional to ma, so F equals to kma, one proportionality constant we have taken, and the value of k we have taken 1, so we got F equals to ma. So force applied equals to mass into acceleration. So this is the Newton's second law of motion. Okay, so from this very basic equation F equals to ma, you can get A equals to F by m, or A is acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. Acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. That is, if a force of constant magnitude is applied on two bodies of different masses, then acceleration produced in these bodies is inversely proportional to the masses of the bodies. So graph you will get like this curved shape graph you will get between acceleration and mass, because they are inversely proportional, there is no direct relationship, and force is remaining constant. Now you see acceleration of force, unit of force, acceleration unit you are knowing. Acceleration is the change in velocity per unit time, that is meter. Standard unit of velocity is meter per second divided by second, so that is meter per second square. So acceleration we are knowing, mass also we are knowing, kilogram. So kilogram meter per second square, kilogram meter per second square in SI, that only we are calling it as Newton. So 1 Newton is that force which, when applied on a body of mass 1 kilogram, produces in it an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. So you can define also this, you can define this 1 Newton. What is 1 Newton? So 1 Newton is that force which when applied on a body of mass 1 kilogram produces in it an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. Produces in it an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. Okay. Similarly, CGS unit we can see. It is dyne. CGS unit is dyne. So 1 dyne also we can define. 1 dyne is that force which when applied on a body of mass 1 gram produces in it an acceleration of 1 centimeter per second square. So unit of acceleration is here centimeter per second square and unit of mass is gram. Because in CGS we are taking gram and centimeter per second square. And in SI we have taken kilogram and meter per second square. So relationship between Newton and dyne. Just to substitute all the values. 1 Newton equals to 1 kilogram into 1 meter per second square. So 1 kilogram means 1000 gram and second will remain second only. Meter means you will convert it to centimeter 100. So we got 10 raised to the power 5 gram centimeter per second square. So 1 Newton equals to 10 raised to the power 5 gram centimeter per second square. So this gram centimeter per second square itself is known as dyne. So this is a very important and a very basic relation, that is 1 Newton equals to 10 raised to the power 5 dyne. 1 Newton equals to 10 raised to the power 5 dyne. 1 Newton equals to 10 raised to the power 5 dyne. Okay. 1 Newton equals to 10 raised to the power 5 dyne. 1 Newton equals to 10 raised to the power 5 dyne. Okay. So this is very important. Other definitions of the Newton's second law of motion. Newton's second law can also be defined or stated in terms of change of momentum with respect to interval of time. With respect to interval of time. This we have discussed already. Just now we have seen change in momentum per unit time, that is equals to the impressed or the external force. Newton's second law of motion, the rate of change of linear momentum of a body is directly proportional to the force applied on its or external force. Derivation of the Newton's first law from the second law. So from the second law we can derive the first law, and from the second law itself we can derive the third law also. So second law, just you see how it is derived. F equals to ma. Here putting F equals to 0 because no external force is applied. No external force is applied according to the law of inertia. Then ma equals to 0. That means ma equals to 0. That means either m equals to 0 or a equals to 0. But m cannot be 0. M cannot be 0. Therefore, automatically that acceleration will be 0. If acceleration is 0, that means either the body is in the state of rest or it is moving with constant velocity. So that is the definition of first law. Therefore, body remains in its state of rest or state of motion if external force is 0. Thus, this is the first law of motion. So, we have derived the first law of motion from the, we have derived this first law of motion from the second law of motion. So, it is very simple. It is very simple. So, second law of motion is most important for your examination purpose also. That is F equals to ma. This is the basic equation. Some examples are given. A cricketer moves his hands backwards while catching a ball. A cricketer moves his hand backwards while catching a ball. Why he is moving his hand backwards? You have seen while playing a cricket, you people are also, while you are taking the catch, you are not keeping your hands intact. You are just taking your hand backside. Why? Because he is increasing the time interval. He is increasing the time interval in which that momentum is coming to 0. So rate of change of momentum is taking place in a large time. Rate of change of momentum is taking place in a large time. That means m into v minus u upon t. We are increasing the t. We are increasing the t. Means denominator we are increasing. We are increasing the denominator. That means force applied will be less. So our hand will experience less force and our hands will not get injured. Our hands will not get injured according to this equation. See, F equals to m v minus u upon t. So if you will increase this denominator, this whole quantity will become less. That is, force will become less. force will become less. And that force is what? That force is only creating a hurt to our hand. It is only applied on our hand. So that's why we are increasing its time while we are taking the hand backside. So that's why a cricketer moves his hand backwards while catching a ball. A weightlifter lifts the weight as quickly as possible. Athletes lands on a sand or a foam after taking a high jump. So these are the simple examples of that one. Now we will come on the Newton's third law of motion. Newton's third law of motion. Newton's third law of motion denotes to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. To every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law of motion. To every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. It is a natural phenomena also that we can say. If you will do some action, there will be a reaction from the other side. There will be a reaction from the other side. So that's why we have studied FAB, that may be equals to minus FBA. Why we have taken the minus? Because equal and opposite. If you are applying a force, then there will be a reverse force also. If you are applying a force, deforming force, then there is a restoring force. So these are the concept of Newton's third law of motion. Newton's third law of motion, that is, to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So a boatman is rowing a boat, he is throwing the water behind, then that water which is just throwing behind, that water is pushing the boat in front. That water is pushing the boat in front. So that means water is thrown backside and that water is creating a reaction. So water which you are throwing backside, that is a action, and the reactionary force which is acted upon by that water on the boat, that is reaction. So action and reaction, two equal and unlike pair of forces are acting on this one in the Newton's third law of motion. So Newton has explained the fact that how does force acts on the object or any body, and this law is stated according to the Newton's third law of motion. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Suppose we stand on the ground, weight of our body acts downwards, but we do not move downwards. It means net force is zero, which is possible only when equal amount of force should act on our body by the earth. The force on our body by the earth balances the weight. It is a case of action and reaction. It is a case of action and reaction. We are standing on the ground, we are not going inside the ground. Why we are not going inside the ground? Because this actionary force is balanced by the reactionary force. So total force is zero. That's why we are able to stand on the ground. When a horse pulls the cart in the forward direction, the horse applies a slanting force on the ground, and reactional force it gets from the ground, and horse comes in position to pull the cart. When the two balls rolling on the floor hits each other, then equal amount of force acts on the balls in the opposite direction. FAB equals to minus FBA. So force on A due to B and force on B due to A. When a spring is stretched by a force, the internal force in the spring acts opposite to the stretching force, equal in magnitude, that is restoring force or whatever you call internal force. Pushing a wall. When a wall is pushed by a person by applying a force, then wall pushes the mass with equal force in the opposite direction. Pushing a wall. When people jump from boat near the shore, boat moves in the opposite direction because reactionary force is exerted on the boat. Firing a bullet from a gun. When a bullet is fired from a gun, a force, say F, exerted on the bullet in the form of action. An equal amount of force, reactionary force, is exerted on the gun. That's why the gun is just little bit, it is pushed backside. So we have to handle it very carefully on our shoulder while firing a gun. Motion of a rocket. The motion of a rocket is also based on the action and reaction. When a fuel is burned in the fuel chamber and exhaust or gases come out from the small opening, and rocket exert a force on the gases to push and can be used at the place to expel them out. The outgoing gases exert an equal and opposite forces on the body of the rocket, due to which it acts in the forward direction. Catching a cricket ball. While catching a ball, some force is exerted by the ball on the hand of the player, an equal amount of force is exerted on the ball by the cricketer, that is in the opposite direction. So equal and opposite forces are acting in this one. That is, Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. To every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. To every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So okay children, so our next topic of discussion will be gravitation. So that we will discuss in the next class. So let us stop now.